The last time someone asked you how you were doing? And I don't mean the quick, hey, how are you? Oh, good, busy. And then everyone keeps moving. I really mean asked you, because as program coordinators, we are really good at taking care of people. A resident needs something, we figure it out. A faculty member has a question, we find them the answer. Our program director needs something 99% of the time, we're already working on it. There's a deadline coming, we're tracking it, we're on top of that. Someone is overwhelmed, we're often the person that they come to. And somewhere in the middle of supporting everyone else, it becomes really easy to stop paying attention to ourselves. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, because when we talk about wellness in GME, so much of the conversation focuses on the people that we support, residents, fellows, faculty, our program directors. But what about the people doing the supporting? Wellness isn't just about whether you're burnt out, and it's not one activity, one habit, or one more thing that we need to add to our already full schedules. It's about how are we doing as a whole person? Hi, I'm Dafny Argueta, Chief Education Officer and co-founder of GME Compass. And today we're talking about the 8 pillars of wellness and what they can look like for those of us working in GME. Because we spend so much of our time supporting everyone else, we need to make sure that we're also supporting ourselves too. We have no financial disclosures. Content shared by GME Compass is based on our own personal experiences in graduate medical education, and they reflect our own professional insights. The perspectives shared are our own, and they do not represent the views of any institution or organization that we have been or are currently affiliated. Before we get into the 8 pillars, here's what I want you to think about as we're going through today's episode. First, I want you to recognize what wellness actually looks like in the coordinator role, because sometimes we can be struggling in an area and not even recognize it as part of our well-being. We're going to look at the 8 pillars of wellness and how they actually show up, not just at work, but in our lives as a whole. And then as we go through them, I want you to reflect on 2 things. Where am I doing well? And where might I need a little more support? That's it. It isn't about mastering all 8 pillars. It's simply about taking a closer look at how we're doing. We talk a lot about well-being in GME, resident wellness, faculty wellness, burnout, fatigue mitigation, mental health resources, and those conversations are incredibly important. But there's another person that I think that needs to be part of that conversation, the coordinator. Because our role isn't only about managing processes and deadlines. There's a very human side to what we do. We're often the person that residents stop to talk to. We're the ones that faculty navigates for challenges. We're managing different personalities. And sometimes we're sitting in the middle of difficult conversations. We're celebrating people through some of their best moments. And then we're also supporting them through some of their hardest. That takes energy. And I know firsthand what can happen when you don't pay attention to how much you are carrying. There was a time when I was working as a fellowship coordinator. I was managing 5 fellowship programs, and it was summer recruitment season. So I was recruiting for all 5 programs. At the same time, I had 5 APEs or annual program evaluations due to the GME office. I had 5 ADS updates that I need to get working on. I was onboarding fellows. I was working on fellow orientation for all 5 programs with 5 different orientation schedules. And of course, the everyday, making sure evaluations are going out, that they're being completed, reimbursements, tracking didactics, all that kinds of stuff, because that doesn't stop just because recruitment season started. And here's another piece. I really hadn't taken a vacation. And to be honest, I couldn't even tell you when the last time I had taken a vacation to simply rest. I took days off for appointments or because I had something I needed to do. But an actual vacation, I really couldn't remember when I had taken one at that point. And the thing is, I thought I was handling everything pretty well. I was going to work, I was getting things done, deadlines were being met, program was moving. So in my mind, I was fine until one day after a successful interview day, I walked out of the office, and as soon as the fresh air hit me, I froze. I couldn't walk. I couldn't move. I couldn't talk. My heart started racing. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And I remember thinking, what the heck is happening to me right now? I actually thought I was having a heart attack. Right at that moment, my mother called me. I answered the phone and I just started bawling. I just started crying. And I couldn't even explain what was happening. And she said, I'm coming to get you. And she did. And in true Latina mother fashion, she proceeded to yell at me from picking me up at work all the way home about not taking care of myself. Now, the delivery wasn't exactly what I needed at that particular moment, but she wasn't wrong. I hadn't been taking care of myself. I had been taking care of everybody else, including them. Everything else was getting my attention except me. For the next few days, I stayed in bed. I cried. I didn't want to do anything. I was completely depleted. And I actually had a week. I had some vacation time coming up, but I wasn't taking it until later in the fall after rank, because of course, in my mind, that made sense as to when I'd be able to finally take some time off or some good time off. But my manager told me that I needed to take that time right then and then. And honestly, I did fight her a little bit on it. And she pretty much had to force me, because even after all of that, even after that experience, I still didn't feel like I could take the time off. I didn't have everything wrapped up in a nice little bow like I normally do when I'm getting ready to be off and be able to hand it off the way that I would like. But you know what? The program kept going. The work got done, and I took the time I needed to rest. That experience taught me something I've carried with me ever since. I have been measuring whether I was okay by whether I was able to perform. And I was getting the work done, so I assumed I was fine, but I wasn't. And after that experience, I made a commitment to myself. I needed to start paying attention sooner. Not because I've somehow mastered wellness since then, because trust me, I haven't. Even, to this day, in 6,000 years in GME, as it feels like, I still haven't managed all of the pillars of wellness. I still have busy seasons. I still have moments when I realize I've been giving too much of myself to everything around me, but now I'm much more aware of the signs. I've learned that I can't wait until I'm completely depleted to start paying attention to myself, and that is important. It affected my work. It affected my life outside of work and how I showed up for people that I loved. And that's when I really began to understand wellness isn't just about whether you keep going. It's about how you're doing while you're going. And that's what brings me to the 8 pillars. So we're talking about the 8 pillars of wellness. What are we actually talking about? Because wellness isn't just one thing. It's not only how we're doing physically, or it's not how we're doing emotionally. They're all connected. There are 8 areas that I want us to think about today: physical, emotional, social, intellectual, occupational, financial, environmental, and spiritual. And here's what I really want you to notice. These areas don't exist independently of one another. If work is overwhelming, that can affect you emotionally. If you're financially stressed, that stress doesn't necessarily disappear once you walk into work. If you're feeling disconnected from people, that can affect how you're doing emotionally. If you stop growing professionally, that can change how you feel about work. And sometimes what's happening in one area starts spilling into several. That's exactly what happened to me. I thought I was okay because I was functioning at work, but I wasn't looking at the whole picture. So instead of thinking about wellness as, am I burnt out or am I okay? I want us to ask a different question. How am I doing as a whole person? And with that in mind, let's start with the first 2 pillars, which are physical and emotional wellness. Putting these 2 together because they're the ones that are often closely connected. And physical wellness doesn't mean that you need to have the perfect exercise routine or a completely changed lifestyle. Sometimes it's much more basic than that. Have you eaten? Have you gotten up from your desk? That is actually a big one. Are you getting enough rest? Are you keeping up with your own appointments and preventative care? Or are you constantly telling yourself, I'll take care of that when things slow down? We know how that goes in GME. Things don't necessarily slow down. They just change. Then there's emotional wellness. Our work can be emotionally demanding. Sometimes we're absorbing frustrations from our residents. Sometimes we're navigating conflict. Sometimes we're worried about one of our residents who's struggling. Sometimes we're supporting our program directors or faculty members through difficult situations. And sometimes we're simply just overwhelmed ourselves with everything. Being professional does not mean pretending that those things don't affect us. Emotional wellness is partly about recognizing what are you carrying and knowing when you need something too. Maybe you need a boundary. Maybe you need to talk something through with someone you trust. Maybe you need to step away from your desk for a few minutes. Maybe you actually need to take some of that PTO that you just keep accumulating. Or maybe you simply need to acknowledge, I am carrying a lot right now. You don't necessarily have to fix everything in that moment. Sometimes the first step is just simply noticing it. So as we start going through these pillars, ask yourself, what is my body or my mind telling me that I've been too busy to notice? Next is the social and intellectual wellness. And I think these 2 especially are important for coordinators because GME can sometimes feel surprisingly isolating. You might be the only coordinator in your department, or sometimes you might simply be the only person who really understands everything that goes into keeping your particular program moving. And then sometimes you just need another coordinator who can understand why you're about to lose your mind after sending the 6,000th email reminder to residents and faculties to complete their evaluations. You don't even have to explain it. They just know. That's why connections matter. Having other coordinators, mentors, or professional community that you can turn and ask, have you ever dealt with this before? We don't have to figure out every part of GME alone. And that's the connection that can also help us grow. Which brings me to intellectual wellness. We're constantly learning because the work requires it. Requirements change, which then changes processes and systems. And there's always something new to just figure out. But intellectual wellness is about more than just learning what we need to get our work done. It's about making the space for our own growth. Maybe that's attending a conference. Maybe that's studying for the Tag Me exam, learning more about an area of GME that actually interests you, or taking something new that challenges you. Because we're so busy doing the work, sometimes we stop making space to grow in the work. And professional development isn't something that we have to wait to pursue until everything is finished, because let's be serious, the work again is never finished. Your growth deserves space too. So ask yourself, am I connected and am I still growing? Next are occupational financial wellness. Occupational wellness is really about our relationship with our work. Do I understand what's expected of me? Does my workload feel manageable? Do I feel a sense of purpose in what I'm doing? And overall, does the way I'm working feel sustainable? Because you can love GME, I love GME, and still have seasons where the work just feels a lot. And those two things can be true at the same time. Then there's financial wellness. It's easy to immediately think salary, and compensation plays a role. Definitely. But financial wellness is broader than that. It's also about understanding and managing the resources that are available to you. Do you understand your benefits? Are there resources through your organization that you may not be taking advantage of? Retirement contributions, tuition assistance, professional development funds, employee assistance programs, or other benefits that you may not have never explored. And outside of work, it can be simple as understanding where your money is going and having a financial plan that actually works for your life. And I think it's important to acknowledge something here. Not every part of financial wellness is within our immediate control. We may not control salary structures, institutional budgets, or compensation decisions, but we become more informed about what's available to us and more intentional about the things that we can control. Financial wellness isn't about having everything figured out. It's about understanding your resources and making informed decisions and knowing where to find the support when you need it. So you ask yourself, does my work feel sustainable? And am I making the most of the resources available to me to support my life? The last two pillars are environmental and spiritual wellness. Environmental wellness starts with something very practical. Where and how are you working? Do you have the tools that you need? Is your workspace functional? Can you concentrate? Do you have somewhere that you can step away for a few minutes when you need to? But the environment is bigger than our physical workspace. Workspace culture is part of the environment too. Do you feel respected? Do you feel comfortable asking questions? Can you raise concerns? Do people communicate with one another? Because the environment around us can absolutely influence how we experience our work. Then there's spiritual wellness. And spiritual wellness can look different for each one of us. For some people like myself, faith is absolutely part of it. For others, it may be about meaning, purpose, values, or feeling connected to something that's bigger than ourselves. And I think that's especially important in GME because we're buried under evaluations, meetings, deadlines, spreadsheets. And it's easy to lose sight of why this work matters to us in the first place. Sometimes reconnecting with that purpose can help us see beyond whatever is sitting in our inbox for that day. So ask yourself, does my environment support me and am I still connected to my why? Now, if you've been listening to this and are mentally creating a list of everything that you need to work on, stop. Don't. That is not the point. You don't need to be thriving in all 8 pillars at the same time because that is not realistic. There are seasons when you're doing really, really well in one area and struggling a little bit more in another. Maybe you're growing professionally, but you're exhausted physically. Maybe you're feeling really connected socially, but work has been taking more out of you lately. Or maybe everything seems fine on the surface, but emotionally you haven't been quite yourself. Wellness isn't about achieving the perfect balance. It's about awareness. So instead of asking, how do I fix all 8 of these areas of my life? I want you to ask yourself, which pillar needs my attention right now? Just one. And then ask, what's one realistic thing I can do to support it? Again, maybe it's finally taking that PTO. Maybe it's reaching out to another coordinator. Maybe it's reviewing your benefits that you've never really looked at. Or maybe it's protecting your lunch breaks. Or maybe it's simply acknowledging, I'm not doing as well in this area as I thought I was. You don't have to fix everything today. Sometimes noticing is the first important step that you can take. Here's what I hope that you start changing in GME. Coordinator wellness shouldn't be an afterthought because coordinator wellness isn't separate from program wellness. It's a part of it. When we're doing well, we have more capacity to think, to problem solve, to connect, to learn, to lead, and yes, to support the residents, fellows, and faculty and program directors who depend on us. But I want us to be careful here. Taking care of yourself isn't important only because it helps you take care of everyone else. You matter too. Your health matters. Your relationships matter. Your career matters. Your growth matters. Your financial stability matters. Your sense of purpose matters. You don't have to earn the right to care about those things by finishing everything on your to-do list. And I think sometimes as coordinators, we need that reminder. We spend so much time asking, what does my program need? What do my residents need? What does my PD need? Every once in a while, we need to stop and ask ourselves, what do we need to? So this week, I want to leave you with one question. Not how can I become better at wellness? Instead, ask yourself, which pillar of my well-being needs support right now? And then choose one small thing that you could do to support it. Because you spent so much of your career helping others navigate GME, but every once in a while, you need to check in on your own compass too. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Which one of the 8 pillars is the hardest for you to prioritize as a GME coordinator and why? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of GME Compass. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe to GME Compass, and share this episode with another coordinator who might need the reminder. Until next time, keep navigating GME with confidence.